Hello there, Mr. Spare No More. So I was just reading online about how the Heritage Foundation has sued to get Harry's immigration records based on some stuff he said in this book, Spare. Keep my copy right here. Looking at the Washington Examiner, because apparently the lawsuit was filed in Washington, D.C., in the district court in Washington, D.C. And so the Heritage Foundation, which apparently is a very right wing organization that is very right wing. And they have sued for the public release of Harry's immigration records. That should be interesting because it says here, according to the Washington Examiner, that the Heritage Foundation sued the Department of Homeland Security for a copy of Prince Harry's immigration records on Monday, citing the prince's admitted use of illegal drugs. It says here, the foundation filed a suit through the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, and it came 1 month after the group requested the information through the Freedom of Information Act. Although immigration records are usually exempt from an FOIA request, the organization argued that the public deserves to know how the British prince was allowed entry into the U.S. Wow. So that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. Now, I did go over to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website, just because I don't know much about this stuff, really. Okay. So, Freedom of Information and Privacy Act, Tucson. And it says here that under the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, and the Privacy Act, PA, you can request your own immigration records, someone else's immigration records if you have their written permission, and agency policies, data, communications, and other records. Hmm. What does that third one mean? Agency policies, data. Under data, you could be in some trouble there. And other records, that could also be problematic. I don't know. What do I think about this? My poor little Harry. Harry, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot. It's a lot of different things. It's a lot of different things. And you're just like, WTF. And so am I. Well, clearly you're going to need some expert legal advice on this. I don't have expert legal advice on this because I don't know anything about immigration law. But based on what I just read, I think normally nobody should be able to get your medical records, just like nobody should normally be able to get your immigration records. That's what it said in the text, that you can get your own immigration records and someone else can get your immigration records if you give them written permission. Now, whether under the third prong that other records or whatever can be, your immigration records, your personal immigration records can be considered other records under the third prong of the U.S. Immigration Services rule and so on and so forth under the FOIA rules is a different question. Can this happen? I mean, anything is possible, Harry. I I would say that, to my way of thinking and to my interpretation of the rules, is that they should not prevail in such a lawsuit, because what would be the basis for giving them your medical records, right? These are not medical records, these are immigration records. I understand that. But to me, it's pretty much similar. It's very similar. I was about to say it was the same thing. It's not the same thing, but it's very similar. I feel like just like somebody cannot make an FOIA request under normal circumstances to have somebody's medical records, this is your private records. This is your business. It's none of your business, right? Similarly, no one should be able to just demand your immigration records. So this organization, I don't know much about it. It's called the Heritage Foundation. I mean, I've heard in passing, surface mentions of the word Heritage Foundation. I don't know anything about them. But them going so far as to file a suit in Washington, D.C. District Court to get your records is pretty deep. Now, it doesn't really mean much for them. They have money, obviously. I mean, Heritage Foundation, far-right group, I'm sure they're very well funded. They probably have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars sitting on the bank with nothing to do with it. And so, filing a lawsuit in the district court of the District of Columbia is not something I think would be so difficult for them to do. That said, I mean, the question is not whether they can file a suit. Anybody can file a suit. The question is whether they can prevail. And at this point, with the world being the way it is and life being the way it is and the country being the way it is, I can't rule anything out, unfortunately. I can't say there's no way that they could win such a lawsuit, but I would say that it seems unlikely to me that they could win such a lawsuit to open up your immigration records to the world. You are a public figure, but you're still a private citizen, right? You're not working in the capacity of a government official or any other fiduciary capacity that would warrant exceptional circumstances. You have not committed any crimes, to my knowledge, other than your admitted drug use, which is against the law. Using drugs is against the law. And if you used that drugs while in the United States, that could obviously be problematic, especially after having your visa. Now, before your visa, when you're 17 years old and you lived in England, I mean, with all due respect, if that is a basis for you not being fit to live in the United States, I mean, pretty much with the what is it called? There's an epidemic in the US. It's called the oh my gosh, opium, the opium epidemic in the United States. I guess that will just empty out the entire country. Look, I've been very transparent about how I feel about this whole topic of drugs. It's not my favorite topic. I don't, I just don't involve myself in it just because I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. You know what I mean? Some things I just think you just shun because it's better. Once you get involved and you start with the thinking and the analysis and the this and the that and the curiosity and this and that, I mean, who knows where that leads? So some things you just shun in life. And that's one of my things. I just shun, not because I'm a good person, I'm as bad as everybody else, but just because I was always very careful not to involve myself in something that, God forbid, I would have liked on any level, because I'm not somebody who, oh, I like it and it's just, I like it. No, I really, really like it. Or I really, really don't. So I never got involved. Okay. And I would hope that, you are no longer involved in that kind of stuff, and that you reach to a higher source of inspiration and healing and so on and so forth, etc., etc. Understanding that obviously medicines exist because people are sick and they need help. And so you said that you, in your book, that, the mushrooms or whatever you used, or the weed or whatever, I'm not even sure, that this helped you to cope. And I've heard other people say that. Isn't marijuana a medical drug at this point in some states in the U.S.? Medical use marijuana is a thing. So if you say there are healing properties, there are healing properties. But as far as the other drugs are concerned, I mean, it's also much. But the point though is the immigration issue, and this FOIA request by this organization, Heritage Foundation, and whether or not U.S. law would permit them to open up your immigration files. I certainly hope not. I hope that they lose the lawsuit. I think that even if you have used drugs in the past, I think because so many Americans are literally addicts. I mean, dying from drug overdoses on a daily basis. I mean, drugs in America, it proliferates. Like, I mean, where do they get all these drugs? I don't know. But I mean, I say this with all due respect. I mean, even the people asking for your records to be opened up, I mean, what is their drug record, right? Have they ever used drugs? Have they ever used illegal drugs? Because I just feel like if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones at other people. And while I am completely 100% against drug use and the whole drug industry and drug trafficking and all of this stuff, to me, it's just like, please go away with all of this. Don't even bring it into my imagination. I live in the world, and I know that a lot of people take drugs. A lot of people take drugs. And some of these people, it's very shocking who they are, that they're taking drugs, right? And I know that in America, drug overuse is a big issue. And so for somebody to come after you on this basis of your drug use when you were 17 or whatever, or 25, whatever you were, to me, it's rank hypocrisy. And I don't like hypocrisy. I don't like hypocrisy, because it would be interesting to know the drug use history of the very people who are bringing this lawsuit against you, Harry. But of course, they may be, Americans, they're not on visas, and so the rules are different and so on and so forth. But should it be? Should it be? I mean, what is the purpose of the rule? The purpose of the rule is to prevent people from using drugs, right? And to stop this proliferation of drugs in the country, and to stop drug trafficking and this, that, and the next. And so anybody who's using drugs, whether they are immigrating to the country or born in the country, should be held accountable. And so if they're going to hold you accountable and get your FOIA records, then you need to open up their records also to see their own drug use, is my position. But don't quote me on this. It's not my area, as I said. Okay? So, yeah, you're going to need an expert on this one, my darling. But you know what? It's okay, because you can still stay 3 months in the country, I think, without a visa, right? And so, as I said, you and Megan may just have to consider an international life where you're in different places during the year. It could be very exciting for the kids. They will love it. So don't worry about it, my darling. Don't worry.